grace on it. All right, call this meeting to order. Ask please that you stand for the invocation and remain standing for the pledge to the American flag. Father, we're so thankful that you've given us this another opportunity to come together to do the business of this great county. We thank you for that trust which has been given to us by the people. We pray for your guidance and your wisdom in all the things that we deliberate and decide, that trust will not go unwarranted. Father, we just pray for your guidance in all that we do. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item, consideration of a resolution to approve the agenda. I'm told that new business item number 1 will need to be tabled. The city of Rankin needs some more time to get some documents together. Other than that, I have no changes.
Make a motion to approve the agenda with the tabling of new business number 1.
So, motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to approve the minutes for the May 5th, 2015 retirement workshop and the minutes of the May 5th, 2015 commissioners meeting. If no one has an issue with either one, we'll approve them jointly. Any correction to either one, we'll settle it. Any correction? Okay. Motion.
Motion to approve the May 5th retirement workshop minutes as well as the May 5th commissioner meeting minutes.
Second. Motion and a second to approve both as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. It should be noted that public comment should be limited to our agenda items only, and that the correspondence from this meeting and all documents relating to this meeting, as are all meetings, are located in the clerk's office and on the Board of Commissioners website. We have a presentation scheduled for 5:15, but I believe everybody's here. All right. Samuel J. Valeroy. Am I pronouncing that correct? Sir. All right. Join me down front. Bar? It's your district. I'll join me down here. Come up here so everybody can look at you. Boy, I have to look up to you. I am told that you have received a congressional nomination to the Air Force Academy from our former Representative Jack Kingston. That's correct?
Yes, sir.
And that you'll be attending in June the Air Force Academy.
Yes, sir.
That's quite an achievement.
Thank you.
Congratulations. You grew up in Effingham County, I understand?
Yes, sir.
From birth?
Work.
From birth.
Oh, no.
No.
Not work.
So you were...
Well, my dad's in the military, and I've moved around
Okay.
all my life.
So you learned where the right place to live? And
Yes, sir. Effingham County. Yes,
All
sir.
right. Well, and Commissioner Floyd is from representative from the district in which you live.
Yes, sir.
So I'd like to present you the certificate of recognition. Saying on this 19th day of May in the year of our Lord 2015, Effingham County Board of Commissioners awards this certificate to Samuel J. Valeroy in recognition of your congressional nomination to the Air Force Academy from former Representative Jack Kingston. You get it?
don't mind.
I don't mind. Accomplishments like this need to be noticed. We take time for all the frivolous things. This is important.
Could I ask her to come down as well?
Sure.
We live on Hinesville Road, so we live in Beers District, and then we relocated over to Mr. Floyd's.
Well, her signature is on that
All right.
certificate as well. But with Vera here, we know she's got to have a picture. He's a fireman, not a talk.
You get a picture of that camera.
You just have to practice with mine.
Congratulations to you, and thanks again.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Floyd.
Here, great night. All right, next item is our consent agenda. First item and only item is consideration to approve to amend the second reading of the revisions to Chapter 75, Utilities of the Effingham County Code of Ordinances. Consider a motion.
Make a motion to approve as stated.
Second. Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. All right, one item of old business, consideration to approve an addendum to the Effingham County's financial policy to address receipt and solicitation of donations and/or gifts. This was presented earlier, there were a few changes.
Yes, sir, that's correct. When we spoke with the board, there was a need for an enhancement and specification regarding non-monetary donations that were in nature. And if you will look on page 3 of 4, it's actually the second page of the actual financial policy. You will see that we made some adjustments in blue, about 3/4 of the way down the page. Those changes basically say that gifts or donations of a monetary nature, including but not limited to things like canned foods, blankets and clothing, disaster preparedness items and so forth, can be taken in by an individual department head if the value is less than $100 without the approval of the administrator or the finance director to support a county function or a public purpose. We did say in here that no non-monetary gifts should be converted to personal use.
So like we made a lot of good changes. It's a lot.
We spoke with several of the different departments and sent it to them to get clarification.
Looks like you covered our concerns. Anybody else got something?
Make a motion, we approve as submitted.
Second. Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. New business. All right, first item table, second item consideration to approve to enter into a service agreement with Fisher International for dishwasher dish machine chemicals.
Good
Good evening, Fiona Charlton, purchasing agent. The county recently purchased a dish machine from Swisher International, who offer a courtesy service and maintenance program, provided a minimum of $200 a month on dish machine chemicals is purchased from them. Deputy Warden confirmed the prison currently spends at least $200 a month on dish machine chemicals, so entering into this agreement with Swisher allows us to purchase the necessary chemicals with the added benefit of courtesy service and maintenance. The county can terminate the agreement with 30 days written notice, provided that Swisher are given 30 days to resolve the problem. The agreement has an early termination penalty of the remaining balance on the contract, but as each term is only for 12 months, the penalty will be minimal. The county attorney has reviewed and approved the agreement, and her recommended changes have been made. As funding is approved in the current general fund budget and has been requested for fiscal year 16, staff recommend alternative 1. Any questions?
So the money we're spending anyhow, we're just contracting with somebody to do it on a monthly basis.
Yes, well, we're buying the chemicals anyway, and if we get it from this company who we bought the dish machine from, they'll give us service and maintenance free.
Gotcha. Spend more money and get better service. Motion.
Make a motion to approve Alderman number 1.
Second.
Motion and a second. That's it. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to allow the food service operating agreement with Aramark Correctional Services to renew for 1 year.
The county currently has an agreement in place with Aramark Correctional Services to provide food services for inmates, senior citizens, and for the Bright from the Start summer food program. The agreement runs from April 1st, 2013 to June 30th, 2015, and may be renewed for 2 additional 1-year periods. Staff believe that while the needs of the county are being evaluated after the jail expansion, it would be beneficial to allow the food service agreement to renew for fiscal year 16. If the renewal is approved, staff will continue to move forward with negotiations for the annual meal price increases with Aramark to ensure that they are in line with the yearly percentage change in the consumer price index. Once the meal price increases have been negotiated to staff satisfaction, they will then be brought before the board for their approval. The agreement has a 90-day for convenience termination clause for either party, in addition to a 30-day default termination clause for either party. The renewal amendment has been reviewed and approved by the county attorney, and as funding has been included for approval in the budget for fiscal year 16, staff recommend alternative 1 to allow the agreement with Aramark Correctional Services to renew for fiscal year 16. Any questions?
Questions? Discussion? Motion. Motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So carried.
Thank you.
Next item, consideration to approve a contract with CHA for master planning and schematic design services for the youth recreation facility.
Mr. Chairman, this is obviously what you just said for the new recreation facility. The board commissioned the recreation master plan to aid the county in planning for future recreational needs. The firm of CHA was hired to complete this 15-year comprehensive recreation park plan in July of 2015. And to go backwards, give you all a little bit of history, because this thing has been on for a little bit of time now. On May 5th, 2014, the board accepted a bid from CHA for architectural and engineering services for the State Route 119 recreation complex improvements. However, before that contract was awarded, the board requested CHA to submit a scope of work and a proposal to prepare a projected capital improvement program, which included program costs and a 15-year phasing and implementation plan. On July 15, 2014, the board awarded that contract to CHA. January 20th, 2015, the master plan, which considered the option of creating a new centralized park to accommodate existing and future recreational needs, was presented to you all. On November 8, 2014, the board purchased 76.89 acres of land for said new centralized facility And on January the 6th, 2015, we purchased an additional 27.83 and 15.41 acre tracts for the same purpose. The master plan and schematic design are the first step in obtaining complete construction drawings for this new facility. And in conjunction with the work that we're asking y'all to approve now, the master planning, master plan and schematic design, we will also require survey services and geotechnical, which will be procured through separate contracts. So basically, this is the first step in moving forward with the new facility that y'all have theoretically approved, I guess, in the short-term work program and through the acceptance of the 15-year master plan that CHA had prepared for y'all. These will be funded throughout the project. It's included in the project costs that were previously approved through the short-term work program. And this is a schematic design of, and for all three, roughly 120 acres, correct? Correct. So it'll be a master plan for the 15-year, be a pictorial drawing, it's not saying that, for the master plan that you all approved, your 15-year guiding document. It will be that in picture form. It includes renderings and so forth for recreational, for promotional type use for signage and all. And then it would have a schematic design phase that went along that. That will be a high-level grading utility type plan that will show lighting, fencing, sidewalks, those sorts of things.
So we get through with this, we'll be able to dig some holes and pour some concrete?
No, sir. No, sir. When we get through with this, we'll be able to start construction documents.
Well, that's what, yeah.
Yeah, this.
We're ready for somebody else to bid on something and get started on it.
No, sir. We'll be ready to do construction documents to be able to bid. These are more or less, another way of looking at it, maybe a bridging document between where we're at today and the ability to do construction documents. This is more of a planning exercise in which, if you look at the proposal, the first task is basically some meeting with stakeholders, with yourself, the rec board. The Board of Education has said things about possibly co-locating. Whether that comes to fruition or not, I don't know, but we'll be having those conversations. It would be assembling a team of whomever, delegation of the board, rec board, to go look at other facilities to see what we like about them, what we don't like about them. And we would take all that input and use that to create the layout of the facility, what it would look like, the entire master plan. We would then take the first phase of that and make a schematic design of it, which would include grading plans, utility plans, but they won't be fully vetted. They will be, enough pictorially to see what we need to do, and then that will be the basis of construction documents going forward.
So we're a long ways from starting anything, more or less. What's the time frame on what all this?
I would say the time frame on all that's going to be largely depending on how much time this board wants to spend in meetings and discussions and looking at a facility. If we just want to put on paper the first thing that pops in our head, we could have these documents done next couple of months and be ready. It's really a matter of how much planning the board wants to put into it.
We've already done right.
So, with that said, it's going to be a couple of months for the preparation of documents, plus however much time on the front end we delay CHA from getting started. And it's coordinating schedules to get the meetings together, to get the trips together. So I would say a couple of months, yes, sir.
Okay. I'm pushing too fast.
No, sir, not at all. We're all ready.
In the proposal, it only references 77 acres, I guess.
It does, and that's why I was asking Mr. King that, and I believe what this is a function of the fact that this proposal had existed in prior state before the acquisition of the other two parcels. And when I called Patrick up and said, hey, can you have this here in the morning? He was very gracious in doing so, but I think he and I both overlooked that reference to 77.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify with Mr. King that it is 100, the whole facility.
This will give us a master plan for the whole tract. Any questions?
Yes.
Motion?
Make a motion to approve order number 1, approve the contract with CHA.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item is consideration to approve the first reading of the 2015-2016 2016 fiscal year budget. Just so that I know, is there any changes between this and what was presented our last meeting?
In total numbers, no, sir.
It would help me if you pointed out what difference.
As y'all know, we have been through this presentation once before this. We did it in some depth. And so it's really based on y'all's wishes as to how in depth we go this evening. However, as always, we look at the budget and the operational considerations. And one of the things that we try to do is to make sure that we create a fiscal, responsible, and balanced budget, that we bring it to you that way within the anticipated rollback rate, or at least within the margin of the current and what we think it will roll back to. We always try to make sure that we comply with our service delivery agreements and ensure that we have budget levels that are applicable for those. In this current budget, we've tried to empower staff and use new software and technology to increase departmental efficiencies, and you'll see that within our capital budgets. We've tried to improve the overall service level to our residents and our citizens. We tried to leverage where we could existing revenues to try and replace some of the capital assets that we've deferred in the last few years. We tried to include an adequate control on contingency funds, and that's why those are within Department 15. And in this current budget, we've tried to provide for a stair-step increase in salary levels. Our goals, as always, we try to keep them simple within our budget, present to the board and our citizens a balanced budget. And this year, more than ever, we've tried to promote our partnerships and our teamwork within the budget and to provide a quality service. The budget challenges, as they have been for the last several years, include the fact that our property tax levels have not increased. In other words, our digest has not increased. New growth has not taken place like we would hope. Increases in the price of consumer prices and our purchases have increased. We're trying to rebuild the aging fleet and our infrastructure, and we're trying to balance all that with the growing population. The first slide, which is also within your packets, basically is an overview of the budgets that we've adopted over the last several years, along with our current request and our proposed. As you can see, our proposed was about $696,000 above last year. However, you will also see that we started off about $1.6 million as far as requests versus where we currently are. The next slide, and most of these, we'll go through them pretty quickly because most of them are just a different slice of dice for y'all to view so that you can see the particulars. But in this particular slide, we basically are doing expenditures by category: personnel, purchases, supplies, capital, our transfers to both 911 and the landfill. And overall, what you will see is that our overall budget is $27,503,688. It's about a 2.6% increase. Of that, about $500,000 is in personnel, about $60,000 is in purchases. Supplies, we actually went down. We found some savings there. We have increased our overall capital by $252,000, so we're at $513,000 worth of capital this year. And then we have been able to reduce the overall transfers to 911 and the landfill. Of that budget that we just talked about, the $27 million, we basically have just gone over the fact that we have about 503,000 increase in personnel. That's mainly due to 4 new employees that we've added within the EMS area. We've done that because staff very much so believes that that is a need, that we need additional truck there, and that we need to staff that during the day to ensure that we have adequate coverage. The longevity step increase was about $308,000. However, we've been able to do reductions in other personnel areas of about $180,000. That's why we've been able to do that, either through attrition, reassignment, and so forth. Some of the personnel changes, as you know, we're still looking at jail staffing. We're looking at that structure and how we do that and the levels that are there. We're trying to maximize the revenue that we get in from the state versus the actual cost with those levels. There is no proposed increase for healthcare costs. Historically, we've been able to adjust that in the plan and to negotiate that with United Healthcare. The current budget does propose reduction in employees, and we have done that through not filling different positions. Right now, our current millage rate is 8.422, based off of the latest digest. A full rollback would be 8.336. We will be somewhere between that, and we'll reevaluate that as we get final figures. Our current digest, as of about 2 weeks ago, was at $1,570,711,104. It has changed slightly since then, and we're hoping to finalize those figures this week. EMS, as we said, there's additional staff made up about $236,000. And the stair step raise, the longevity increase was about $308,000. So the net change in personnel was about $503,000. One of the things that we did want to make sure of is that everybody understands the historical timeline within EMS. Ms. Wanda was kind enough during the budget process to give us a bunch of historical information to help us quantify adding those additional personnel. As you will see, this basically just outlines from 1979 through 2015, the trucks and the units and the personnel. So we started off basically in about 1980 with 1 truck, and we've now grown to 5. And right now, the addition that we're adding is for a 13-hour-a-day truck, 7 days a week. One of the things that we wanted to make sure of was that you also saw the timelines. This is information that's gathered from our different calls, and you will see that basically it shows that our calls are escalated during the day, and that's why that truck is needed. This is just a stat as far as the number of calls that we're handling from 2005 to 2014. As you see, we basically went from about 2,900 up to about 5,400. As far as capital, real quickly, we proposed $513,000. $300,000 of that is the sheriff's vehicles. We're basically going to spend about $649,000 in vehicles, but do that over 5 years. So that with last year's equals $300,000. As far as roads department, we put some in there for smaller roads. We also added within general government $45,000 for pool cars. We believe that we'll probably spend about $60,000, but with the savings from gas and so forth that we've been able to carve out, we think we'll net out at about $45,000. The EMS also needed heart monitors this year. That was about $160,000, but we will pay for those over the next 5 years also. So we added that $30,000 in. As you know, you had a presentation from the tax assessor's department, and the tax assessor's department basically has some software that they want to use in the field to help eliminate personnel and duplication of effort. That's about $26,000. We believe that that will significantly help us as the digest grows and those parcels split. The general fund basically is made up of about 68% of personnel. Of course, we are service-based, and that's the reason for that. Purchases are about 14%, and supplies are about 11%. This just gives you a historical trend since 2006 of the cost based off of the category and trends as far as judicial and courts and general government, and just gives you an idea of how we have been able to streamline those costs. Most of our costs are in public safety, as they normally would be. These are just the expenditures shown in a different way as far as by service, with the amounts for public safety, of course, being the largest at about $12 million, general government at $3.8 million, and then judicial falling behind that at $3 million. Historically, this just gives you an idea of the general fund actual revenue, the general fund budgeted revenue, and the actual expenditures. And as you can see, we have been very close the last few years, trying to make every dollar count, and still being responsible with those funds. General fund proposed revenue. Our functional revenues are about 6.2. Property tax and other type taxes are about 14.8. We believe our loss will go up a little bit this year to 5.9. Our miscellaneous type revenues are about $500,000. Those totals will balance our budget at the $27,503,000. This is just a graph of our property tax revenue. About 54% of our overall funds that we receive. And as you can see, we have had some decrease in that property tax over the last several years, but it has held steady these last couple of years. Projected loss revenue. This current year, we believe it will go up by about $200,000. As you can see, the difference between 2006, 7, and 8, where we received in a lot of lost dollars versus current, and as such, we have cut our budget significantly over the last 4 or 5 years. It averages about 21% of our overall revenue. This is just a different way of looking at our general fund revenue sources. One of the things we did want to bring out as far as the per capita cost to the citizens, however, a per capita cost, 2010, 2014, if you look, we were at 526 in 2010. Per capita cost right now is 496. So when we look at our overall property tax dollars and relate that to a value of a house of 100,000, public safety takes about 45% of that. So of a household that is 100,000 with the average valuation of 40, the property owner is paying about $333 as far as their property tax to the county, and of that, about 150 is spent on just public safety. These are historic millage rates. As you can see, the last one is basically still in process. And so we will be working with the tax assessor and tax commissioner to define that a little bit better as to where we will be between our current rate of the 8.42 and the actual digest rate and rollback rate. We will be somewhere in between those. Our special funds, as people know, for the most part, deal with our sanitation, our SWAS funds, our zoning, our fire services, and so forth. And those are primarily what they term enterprise funds. Those enterprise funds, we try to make it self-sufficient as possible. Our SWAS funds are project funds, and those are in conjunction with our short-term work program. Within our special funds, it's noted that sanitation, for instance, we've had a reduction there because of staff levels. As you know, Ms. Wanda retired this last year, and so we did not refill that position. The fire department, we went through a study, and we have suggested that we add 9 new firefighters. As of this last week, I believe we have the agreement with Springfield approved. Of the 9, we will be using 6 of those to cover the Springfield area. And so this was one of those things that we did because we wanted to ensure that there was safety within our staff at all times of the day when they're adhering and answering fire calls. Inspections and zoning, we did increase that just a little bit. We did say, though, by doing a hybrid between sanitation and the inspection and zoning, where we split those duties and actually used part of the hours from the sanitation clerk in with the inspections and zoning to add some additional coverage there. Under seniors activities, we actually withdrew a position because it wasn't needed. One of the things that we always have to talk about is our special tax district. As you know, we get funds in, and we then transfer those funds to the various programs that we need. The transfers in are our insurance proceeds, which is about $1.8 million. Our franchise and fill funds, which is about $1.4 million. On the other side, we of course have to transfer the fire, water, and sewer. And so this year, we are anticipating needing to transfer to fire about 1.8, transferring to water 1.3, and to sewer about $600,000 to $700,000, for a total of 4. In the past, we haven't really delved into a lot of the fire, but as we've done some of these consolidations, we felt like that we did need to make sure that the board was aware more than ever of exactly what those costs are. And so we have scheduled out for you, both in the slide presentation and also within your books, what we're currently spending on fire, both in personnel and expenditures, and then in revenues. Current year, as it stands right now, we will be at about $3 million in expenditures, and with transfers in from the special tax district, we will be at, or right at about $3 million in revenues. With that said, it has not been the crux of this commission to raise fire fees until we get some of this logistics settled. And so right now we are pulling that from the special tax district. If you want to discuss that further, perhaps raising those fees or waiting until the next year to do so, then we can revisit that at that time. The same thing holds true with the Rinkin budget. As you know, the Rinkin budget is encompassed within our own budget. And currently, basically, our portion of the Rinkin budget is about $550,000. That is within the $3 million that we just spoke about. With our guidance budget is about up to about 167. That's with the addition of Griffin Lakes this year. As you know, there's been talks with Springfield and with Rinkin and with guidance as far as maneuvering some of those districts and fire districts and who's servicing what. Those are continuing, and I think talks will probably be getting with y'all in the coming weeks as to those meetings. I think there's some meetings scheduled with Rinkin and some meetings possibly scheduled with Dallas. Wastewater treatment. Wastewater treatment in the current year has a budget total of 1.6. As you know, this is one of those areas in which we basically group a water system and square area, in which we do not have the customer base necessarily to support that. As such, we supplement that particular fund with the special tax district, and we're supplementing it by $1.3 million. We have looked at pieces within wastewater treatment and within water to try and solidify those as much as possible and to reduce those costs. And we're looking for additional ways to do that. And that's one of the workshops that we plan on doing within the next 6 months, is to look at those even more thoroughly. This is on your water and sewer operations. It's at $2.3 million as far as the overall cost, with functional revenues of about 1.3. Your cost recovery of about $300,000 for the current year, and then we will supplement it with special tax district at $700,000. The points that we spoke about last time had to do with the capital, and as far as the use of fund balance versus the balanced budget. In the past, we've used fund balance sometimes. In this particular case, we went ahead and put it in the budget. We believe they are things that are much needed. Agency, the chamber, as you know, the contract's included in there. One of the things that staff was pleased about this year was the fact that we were able to increase the library funds by about $25,000. That was not everything that they asked for, but they felt like that they could work with that. We, of course, don't have events for Old Effingham Days or fireworks at this point. The NPO dues, I think Toss spoke with y'all at this last session about those. And then some of the things that are still in process is the landfill. As you know, we're looking at the Republic possibly taking over some of those functions. We have already concluded with the Springfield fire agreement. Our prison contract will be back up before y'all in the next couple of sessions. As far as, I think that's due by the end of June. And we currently have out mowing RFPs for the buildings, for the grounds, and the county facilities. One of the things we have yet to talk about that we do need to talk about is the hospital. As you know, our current millage with them is about 1.977. The board elected this last year to bring that in-house and have those funds come directly to us. Right now, in looking at that, at the 1.977, based off of the current digest, it's probably about $3 million. So we will need to discuss how to handle the funding of that. Our fire budgets, I think, have been pretty well solidified. Our short-term work program, y'all reviewed those several months ago, and those changes are within this current budget as far as the 5 years. Then as far as the adoption of the millage, we will be able to do that. I believe we moved that agenda to the 23rd, was it not, Stephanie?
It's on the agenda tonight.
Okay. To move that meeting so that we do not have to have two. And again, the adoption of fees for fire fees and sanitation. I don't believe there will be any needed increase for sanitation. And fire fees, of course, is at your discretion.
What is the date that we're considering moving the meeting to?
I think most of you called with questions or concerns or were at many of the meetings. I know that Mr. Loper spoke to me earlier about several things that we needed to just change in the document, and I'll be getting with him to make sure those changes happen.
What's the, you mentioned hospital. This board is committed to a contract to provide $3,600,000 and the 1.9777 or whatever generates $3 million. What did we decide to do? Are we going to put that Or we haven't?
We haven't, that's what she's asking.
See, it was mine, I thought we were putting it in as a budget item, 3,600,000, and we were taking the millage.
It technically is a special revenue at this point because it's solidified for a particular purpose. So the difference is that if there are not enough property taxes raised, then the issue is do we think there'll be enough from prior, which at this point I don't believe that's the case. I think we've used most all of that, which means that in the other piece that we had talked about, back to the capital. In the past, we have taken capital out of fund balance rather than out of current revenue, okay? Which if that's the case, that 513,000 could just be pulled out of fund balance for the capital and the difference put in for the hospital, or vice versa.
It's hard for me to remember, but we had a long detailed discussion about, I thought that there was some old that had never been used, so that it will be available.
That was the 540,000, and that was what was due at the end of December. That hopefully will come in to pay what we've already done.
We're keeping a separate account.
That's correct.
Yes, it'll come in to pay what we've already done, so there won't be a back in the budget.
That's correct.
That's right.
So that the two will never really touch our general fund. Any difference will stay in there and go, rotate out to the next year. And then we'll balance our millage based off of that. But we can go either way. We can make the adjustment in the budget to show all of that capital coming in our fund balance and show the difference going to the hospital, or we can simply have y'all elect to pull those funds out of fund balance.
But if there is a shortage, if we collect $3 million, there is not anything being assumed to be collected out of old, and there is still old to collect. So that's where I was coming from with that, because
Not much old left.
There's not, based off the fact that we have already dispersed funds against that.
That 500 and something thousand that we agreed to disperse 2 months ago or whatever.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's used up those anticipated past due collections.
Now, I understand.
and I thought Linda told us in the budget meeting with her that she would have more sales and she thought she could collect that much.
But I am
Again.
totally everything that's on the rolls. That's total that was outstanding.
Bottom line, are we going to keep the hospital as a separate millage item on the tax bill? Or
As it-
does it all roll into our millage?
As it stands right now, my understanding from Linda, from, I believe, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Pitts, that as long as we leave it as it is currently, with the same language that we have, we can do it exactly as we are doing it now, and simply have that other operating account where those funds go directly into it, and change nothing.
About how we report it.
Correct.
We would just, it would be up to us to change that millage, increase it to generate the 3.6 million.
That's correct. Just as it would prior to this.
And if it's raised, if that millage is raised, will that be advertised as a millage increase?
It has to, and then you have to have a hearing.
Yes.
Which is what I had not had an understanding we weren't doing.
If we raise it. If the board chooses to leave it exactly where it is right now, then we proceed as we normally do, with no increase.
And we see what we collect, and if we don't collect enough, then we have to make an adjustment. Then,
But it's my understanding if we don't go back to the full rollback, which we're not anticipating doing, we're going to have a hearing anyhow. We do not.
I believe the last pieces that I saw, there's a 3% in there,
3%.
and we can stay at the 1.977 and still be within that 3%. Correct. You know what I'm talking about?
I understand.
Well, I've been working under the thorough assumption that we were doing our budget so that we did not have to have any kind of increase that would require.
And I'm saying you can still do that. All I'm saying is you'll need to appropriate it out of fund balance.
And the only difference is what we're talking about for the hospital tonight.
That's correct.
Because I was confused about the second question, so I'm trying to be sure.
Yes, ma'am.
And we haven't been generating that for the last several years to
We actually, if you look at our,
what the board had committed to fund.
In the individual year without having
In the-
collecting back taxes.
in the individual year. However, the difference is that you do have your regular fund balance, your operational fund balance on hand, and then you have your unassigned fund balance on hand. That's about another 5 million. So between those two, you have the 4.2 plus the 5. Plus, if you chose to, you could take it out of your special tax district. Any of those options.
But sooner or later it'll catch up to you. I mean, we're taking water and sewer deficits out of the special tax district. You take the deficit for the hospital out. I mean, it's,
The balances
So
have
the hope had
continued to
been
increase.
that the digest would increase, that there would be far more new growth. And that's the only way that you really get any difference in your actual tax dollars, is that it's from new growth. And we just did not see that this year. I would say, based off of what I see coming through planning and zoning, that things have picked up quite considerably. So it may be another year, it may be 2 years.
It's trended like this and now.
How much longer, this is probably a toss question, on the fire, can we really look at fire fees? Because I know we making big strides in fire service, to where we can show, that we provided that ISO reduction. Might be a loaded question.
It's going to be a phased approach. You know, we've already done some things down the south end of Lincoln that reduced some of the holes we had there. Opening Griffin's Lake was a positive there. Tuscalin's 30 days out, 60 days out, which will basically replace Griffin's Lake of what we've done, maybe a larger area. The other two holes that are left are depending on the property acquisition that we can get. We're working on one of those that we've actively identified that is for sale. There's some covenant issues we're working through right now, trying to resolve that, because right now the covenant includes a fire station on the property, so we're trying to go through and talk with the homeowners and see if they will be amenable to amendment to that covenant that will allow it on there. The other two, we're still trying to identify properties, and I know Clint's talked, he's looked, he's thought, we just have, there's not one sitting there for sale.
Yeah.
So, as quickly as we can get that property, we'll build the buildings, and honestly, it's going to be determined on how long it takes us to get this property. I was hoping when we talked a while back, there was a piece of property for sale, the one we needed, we could buy it, move on, we got plans, we can move right into it, then the covenant issue came up, there's 10 lots. It's going to depend on how long it takes us to chase down all 10 of the owners and see what it will take to get them to sign it. And if we can't ultimately do it, we'll have to stop and find another piece of property. So what I would say is, by July, we're not going to have everything. We'll make some,
I mean, I know they're looking out.
we'll move that direction, but probably by the following budget year, we should have all those pieces in place, unless we just cannot find a piece of property. Put it,
I really have a question.
Sir,
I really have a question.
how about the money on the fire that we get from the city of Springfield, that we don't have to pay them, and then we'll collect some from them? Will that make any difference?
it will, it is considered in your budget and the numbers that you have yesterday, it is better for us financially that way, because we will the additional people that we put on are basically netted out with the difference in what we were paying Springfield, and we collect their fees, so it is better.
It'll help good.
Yes, sir. Financially, it was a positive move, let me say that.
And for the citizens that are here, if they feel like that maybe we're not having a lot of discussion about this, this is the second full presentation that we've had. We had a presentation at our last meeting of this exact same information, which we asked questions and all that time, so.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question as to Jack Garvin from Clio, Georgia? The wastewater treatment, how many customers do we have in that? I know it never pays. I mean, it doesn't anyway.
Mr. Jack. I think right now, we have both water and sewer customers. Between water customers, there's approximately, I'd say about 1,300 water customers. There's probably around, I want to say about 1,100 sewer customers.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Let's have to do this, if you will. Let's put it in, as far as a budget item, that it will come out of fund balance. If for some reason those funds come in differently, or there's something that changes, then, we will make those amendments as we do each quarter. But for right now, we'll put it in as a special fund, with it coming from fund balance.
We did have a fund balance increase, right?
We had a fund balance increase this past year, yes ma'am, of about 500,000. Now understand also too, we did not necessarily use that this last year because we did not do some of the capital things that we had anticipated doing. And we did not use our contingency this last year. So we would have those two things, already there.
And that's kind of the point. I didn't want to sound like we were just draining the fund balance because,
No.
we did have an increase. So that's,
If you look at your cash report tonight, what you'll see is in the special tax district, we have kept that right at about $6 million. We do so to make sure that those funds are there and available. You'll also see what you have in cash for your general fund and so forth. I try to make sure that that special tax district does not get down below $5 million. I think we have ample funding. I think it's just the fact that the timing isn't exactly what we had hoped as far as that digest increase.
well, we hate that we're stuck with a contract that we don't, doesn't cover itself, but that's what we were handed, and so we're making, dealing with that as we can.
Yes, ma'am.
So most likely we'll be fine to keep things the way they are this year
Yes.
with what we have. We can check the trend out, see how that goes this next year, and then
Yes, sir.
make a decision based on
I
that.
think you have ample on hand at this point, and we certainly do for operations. We have backup to that operations along with the special tax district. I will say that we do need to visit heavily water and sewer in the coming months to see what can be done there. But at the same point in time, at this particular point in time, I don't see a problem with doing that.
I know financially, we're fine. I mean, we're not broke.
Yes.
We've got money. I just don't like the idea of knowing there's going to be a $500,000 deficit, and we're really not budgeting for it. We're just putting it out there, knowing that we're going to take it out of fund balance.
We technically are budgeting for it because in many instances, for instance, on our capital, in the past, most people allow that to go to fund balance and then spend out of fund balance for capital. In this particular case, we put all of that capital up front in our current revenues. And so it's just a different way to necessarily look at it. But, as far as actually having it documented, we wanted to make sure that this board was aware that it shows within the overall schematics of the budget, and that we have funding available to take care of it. I just don't think any of us want to see a tax increase if there is any manageable way not to.
Rather than pulling it out of fund balance before you absolutely have to in case we do collect some overage, we're just having a discussion that we know we're prepared to do that, and therefore it would be budgeted as
Correct. And as we always do, We keep y'all abreast of everything month by month in your financial statements. We can have sheets just for that so that you stay clearly on top of that.
Any other questions? All right. I'm going to give you a motion to approve the first reading of the 2015-16 fiscal year budget.
Make a motion that we approve the first reading of the budget as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed?
And I've already talked to Joanne about this, it's no big problem.
All right, now you talking about the budget, or you talking about the ordinance itself?
The budget.
Record show.
Is that just some changes you were asking to have made that don't necessarily reflect the numbers, but just how the document reads?
Yes.
All right, next item, consideration to approve the first reading of the budget ordinance for the fiscal year 2015-16, which is the ordinance that attaches itself to the budget.
Yes, sir. Each year we have a budget ordinance. That budget ordinance guides us as far as what we can and cannot do within the budget itself. Some of the changes that we've made within the budget ordinance for the current year was to ease some of what is a laborious effort for staff regarding this ordinance itself. You'll see on page 2, I believe of 4, we added number 14 simply to refer that all funds are to be set up and the financial transactions reported in accordance with GAAP. In the past, that was just referenced in some of them. It did not inclusively state that we had to adhere to GAAP and GASB throughout all of our budget items. So we added that out in. And then on page 3 of 4, you will see that when this budget ordinance was adopted a few years back, and correct me if I'm wrong, Elizabeth, but we basically tied it down to a category level. But when we tied it down to a category level, part of that had to do with budgets that were not necessarily in our control. And at the time, staff felt that it was more indicative to tie those categories down by the ordinance itself. What it basically did was make staff make budget amendments through every single category. And it's why you see what is a very convoluted budget amendment where we're having to move line item to line item, category to category. And the only thing it did was to bind staff to a bunch of paperwork. And so the gist of it is that in the past, we've always tried to adhere to a departmental level amount. In other words, the department cannot go over that amount. The board has always had the discretion over anything to do with personnel. And so what we're simply asking here is to remove those pieces that tie it category by category so that staff can, as needed, move money from category to category without having to come and do a budget amendment for one line item before we can do anything. At the same point in time, we also submitted within this that all of the appropriation changes or increases were to be brought before this board on a quarterly basis, which is what we're doing now, which is 2 of the items that you'll see subsequent to this particular item. It is simply an effort to take the monotony out of the function that is already there and entrusted to us.
Now, is all that on dual control, or is there a certain dollar amount that will require dual control?
So it would require both the administrator and the finance director.
Any questions? Sorry?
We basically bound ourselves and did not bind the intent of what was being done.
Motion?
I make a motion to approve alternative number one.
Second.
Motion on second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. All right. Next item, consideration to approve the change in the women's sales fund to the county retirement fund bond fund.
Good evening. As far as the decision for the Board of Commissioners to look at this evening, in early 2015, there was a change in bond fund managers, and as required, the Board of Commissioners are being notified in case they would like to make a change in their bond fund. As a reminder, the board should consider the investment objectives, risk changes, and expense of the funds carefully before investing. Past performance, of course, is not a guarantee or a reliable indicator of future results. I have given you attached documents on the funds for PIMCO Total Return, Dodge & Cox Income, Loomis Sales Bond, Loomis Sales Investment Grade Bond, and Janus Global Unconstrained Bond Fund. Currently, you are in the PIMCO Total Return, and that is the fund that has the change in managers. Your alternatives today are to remain and make no changes and remain in the PIMCO Total Return. There is a change to a Loomis Sales Fund recommended. Also a change to the Janus Global Unconstrained Bond Fund. But please note that this also requires an exception to be made in your investment policy statement. This fund is new as of September 2014, and the current IPS does not allow for funds that have less than 3 years of returns. You can also remain as a portion in the PIMCO Total Return and add a portion in another section such as Loomis Sales Fund, or you can remain in a portion of PIMCO Total Return and add a portion in the Janus Global Unconstrained Bond Fund, of course with the same caveat that I just mentioned, that it will require a change in the IPS. I do have an additional document for you this evening from our workshop, and it just basically pulls the fund pieces that I've given you into one worksheet. And I do have Jenny Nichols here to explain it a little bit further. She is your investment advisor, so you're able to make an informed decision of where you'd like to be.
Jenny, the reason for the change is mainly because the fund manager leaving the company.
Yes, Bill Gross has been a bond icon for years, and he was well invested in PIMCO Total Return Fund as well as their unconstrained fund for decades. He left late last year in 2014 and went and started Janus Global Unconstrained Fund. There is not a total return fund at Janus. So what you guys are in right now, there's a different risk tolerance within the unconstrained fund over at Janus. But it was brought out of our workshop, last week or on the 5th, that we wanted to bring this to the table too, because Bill Gross is an icon. But this is the only fund that he is managing right now, is the Janus Unconstrained Global Unconstrained Fund. So yes is your answer. PIMCO Total Return did have a change in manager
The current manager is Mahir Waraha, I can't say his name correctly, and he took over at that time in September. And also to note that you do have to have 3 years of return in your investment policy statement for all of the funds that you choose currently, unless an exception is written. But also your fund manager has to be in existence or a management team for 2 years. So with PIMCO, if you do decide to stay with them and their returns are fine and everything is going well, and yes, there was some folks that took money out of the PIMCO total return and went into the unconstrained fund for the same reasons that you guys are considering it as well, but their returns are still doing well. Now, their turnover and risk tolerance and all that is still about the same.
What percentage of this fund are we looking to transfer? I mean, how much was in the?
It's 1.2 million. It's 1,228,000 and change, which is considerable amount, but it's
20% of what we have.
yeah, you need to consider changing it if you want to, or you can keep it, but the returns are still there.
No, I mean, the balloon, yes, I'm just asking.
No, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
we don't have any guarantee on anything, do we?
Well, no,
I mean, you don't have a guarantee, so you're taking a chance.
taking a chance either way.
Either way.
It's just, if you do choose to stay in PIMCO, it's a discussion we have to have, first of all, because the IPS states that you can't have a management team under 2 years. And so now that has changed, and we need to do that. If you want to take the an alternative of going into the PIMCO unconstrained fund, which is global, by the way, so it does have South America in it as well, about 20-something%, but most of it is domestic. Is just something that you need to consider. The yields are all about the same in rough areas of 2%. Loomis sales is a little bit higher than that.
This got, for Loomis sales, it's got the best for the past 3 to 5 years.
Yes.
So,
They have a good consistency
actually,
run.
Last 10.
Yes, and also their expense ratio is very well in line with what you are looking at as well, at 0.63%. Your beta is the lowest, which means they take the less risk, and that's important as well. And your alpha is the highest, which means they get the better returns. So that's why I suggested going with the Loomis sales, at least for a portion of it. But that's y'all's decision. As far as taking risk, I like lowering risk and raising the return, and that's the one I would choose.
I feel good with Loomis sales. If I was going to bet on it, I guess I shouldn't use that term, betting on anything, but
No, not
my personal portfolio, I mean, I would definitely feel fine with Bill Gross. I mean, as
sure,
successful
I
as he's
would.
been, but on the retirement plan, I just couldn't get comfortable since its inception of May of 2014.
Okay.
But I think I'd like to see us keep an eye on that.
Okay.
Because I think Bill will probably have most likely
I think
good success as he
he's
always
already
has.
doing phenomenal. So, in the first quarter, he's already over 1% just in the first quarter, which is great. He does take a lot more risk than what you're used to taking with this amount of money. So, in that regard, I would suggest keeping him on watch. I agree with you on that. I think he's awesome. And he put his own money into it as well, like he always does. But this is not my personal money, so I'm with you on that.
So even if we stay with where it's sitting now, our move, the
Yeah.
damage, we've got approved an exception to our policy.
Yes, sir.
But not if you go to Loomis.
Loomis is-
If you go to limit sales, you do not need to change your IPS at all.
Are there fees associated with moving from one fund to another?
No, sir.
I guess my question, if we're going with the best return, the Loomis sales bond is the best. And it's the safest.
It's safer as far as their beta. Their beta is a lower rate, which means that they take less risk. And it's within the realm of your investment objective of what that money is for purpose. It has a higher yield, and it has a higher return.
She's done her homework. She's
Yeah.
got the facts here.
Well, any other questions? Now do I hear a motion?
Make a motion that we approve alternative number 2 and change to the loan sales fund.
Second. Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Next item, consideration to approve a governmental NESC lease agreement for lighting services at the jail and sheriff's office.
Mr. Chairman, this agreement is for outdoor lighting to provide adequate security lighting on the exterior of both the jail and sheriff's office complex. It's to add one additional light to better illuminate an area that's currently insufficiently lit. March 4th, 2014, the board approved a lighting agreement for the sheriff's office and jail for a total of 14 new lights and the replacement of 18 existing. Those were replaced with LED lights. Since that lighting has been installed and the building became occupied, it was determined that there was insufficient lighting levels that exist in one spot. It's my understanding that there was a conversation when all of this was done initially that there possibly would be. They just wanted to get in and see first. In order to remedy this, the proposal is to add one additional 365-watt LED light. We currently pay approximately $1,700 per month for the 32 lights that are there, which includes the maintenance in that fee. This would add an additional approximately $60 a month to that. Staff recommends that the board approve this agreement for the additional light.
Any questions? Motion?
Make a motion to approve alternate number 1.
Second. Motion and second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to declare approximately 1.993 acres of land as surplus and accept sealed bids for its sale. Elaborate on that, Mr. Allen?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, one correction there. I'm not sure what end it was on, but we're not really asking for sealed bids on this. We're not asking y'all to put this out to bid. We're just asking for surplus at this point in time. I apologize for that. On April 8, 2010, Effingham acquired approximately 1.253 acres of property for the use of the right-of-way. At left, about 1.993 is a remnant to that parcel. Effingham County acquired title to that remnant because it wasn't big enough to be used for anything else, and the right-of-way was used for Augusta. The previous owner waived their rights to repurchase at the time the property was conveyed. We don't have an immediate need nor any foreseeable need for this particular property. You have previously declared this same property surplus on April 14th of 2014. It was offered for sale by sealed bid and none were received. At this point in time, since we did not receive any bids and we've maintained the property and kept it on our insurance, we'd like to ask y'all to resurplus that property. But again, we're not necessarily asking to put that out for bid at this time.
What is the necessity for resurplusing what we already surplus? I just wasn't sure I was clear about that part. Is it just to be?
I think before we surplused it for a particular period of time to ask for bids, and since we didn't get any bids, this is to clarify that we can in fact, it is still surplus.
I don't exactly recall what the time period was on this particular piece of property that was put out last year. But your surplus policy may have a requirement in there that requires you to do it each year.
Well, by doing it, we're safe, so.
Yeah.
Well, we've done it in the past, and I think the idea in the past, right or wrong, was simply that we surplused it, and then afterwards, the act of continuing to pay insurance, continue to act as if it was ours, may negate the fact that it was surplus.
Because we didn't dispose of it at the
Yes,
time.
ma'am. So just to be safe, we're asking for y'all to do it again. And full disclosure, you did do it April 14, 2014. The board did vote to surplus this exact same piece of property.
Okay.
Especially if you accept sealed bids and there's a set date and don't get in.
Did you have a minimum bid on it before? Or nobody?
No bid.
There were none accepted. The yes, sir, the bid documents did specify tax value, and I don't recall exactly what that number was, but we did say we would accept nothing less than tax value for that property.
I just wonder why nobody bid on it. I mean,
I don't know,
they
because
should have a
there was,
minimum on it.
someone specifically asked, is the reason we went through those motions, that the bid documents were sent to that particular individual, we still received them. So I don't know if they thought they would get it for less than tax value, or something changed. I don't know the answer to that.
Where's said property at?
Old Augusta Road is roughly at the intersection of Old Augusta and Fort Howard, on the opposite
Get it in
side.
the newspaper, I bet you have bids.
It was in the newspaper.
They don't read it.
Yeah, we advertise it here and on our website and about 14 other places.
Okay. Question? Motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve alternative number 1, that we declare the property as surplus.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? So, next item, consideration to approve the budget amendment for water and sewer.
If this board remembers, I believe the administrator came before you on several different occasions, letting you know of some additional repairs and so forth that were necessary within our water and sewer area. In addition to that, and going back and looking at some of our documents, if you recall, the board did approve us also extending a water line, and I did not see a fiscal budget amendment for that. It was approved by the board, but just not the paperwork on the accounting side of it. And so you'll see a series of amendments, and I'd like to go down with those with you. I think the administrator had made y'all aware that we had replacement pumps at Goshen lift station that needed to be done, that we were in need of some equipment, such as a camera to go down and shoot the actual lines, within the lines to be able to tell where there was a problem and so forth, that we needed a high-pressure jetting machine, that we had some repairs at the wastewater treatment center that were electrical in nature, whereas the conduit had come off due to corrosion, and we needed to have those repairs done. We also had the Hodgeville pump station pipe replacement, and as this board knows, in 109 Saratoga, where we had an issue with the lateral, 4-inch lateral, and then Savannah River Utilities for the Hodgeville pump station, and excavating that as far as the manhole and so forth. The line extension for Blue Jay, which was $175,000 of this particular budget amendment. And then we also had E&B coating at the Hodgeville lift station and pump station that we needed to have rectified. The one one major piece in here that I don't believe was directly discussed with this board has to do with the need for a bypass pump, in which we were having some work done at the Hodgeville lift station, or having to rent that particular pump at a significant cost each month. We did inquire as to purchasing that pump and simply putting the rental against that pump. The cost of that pump itself was about $56,000, less the rental that we were able to negotiate with them going against that cost. I believe that everyone within the operations of the water and sewer believe that we need to have that on hand, especially in the evenings where we may have a problem and don't necessarily have a pump on hand that is sufficient to ensure that we could use it as a bypass pump. And so you will see a budget amendment in here for $46,000. That is the difference between the rental and the actual cost of the pump itself. With those items totaled, the 175 plus the 46 for the pump, plus the additional repairs, totaled 327,858. And this board requested that we basically do those in detail with you, that you approve them as an emergency item for the administrator to carry out.
Any questions from the board? I'll entertain a motion.
They make motion to approve all number 1.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed? So carried. We're going to take a 10-minute break. I'll be back in here at 20 up by that clock.
Yeah, this is exactly what I need. When we go to survey, I know all right. You're not growing that.
All right, next item, consideration to approve budget amendment for travel.
Yes, sir. As you know, we from time to time each quarter bring before you adjustments for per diem and travel. We do so because that has been budgeted within Department 15 and is under the guidelines of the administrator who then appropriates those funds to the individual departments. And so this is basically just a resolution amending the budget to move funds into the departments for which travel has been approved either by the administrator or by the school.
This is all money that's already been spent. The amount taken out of Department 15 equals the amounts that's spent in the
That's
other
correct.
department.
Yes, sir.
Any questions, motion?
Make a motion to approve as stated.
Second. Motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to approve to appoint members to the Recreation Board.
On March 17, 2013, the board approved the second reading of the revised recreation ordinance. The revisions transform the board makeup to 5 members to reflect the terms of each commissioner district. These terms are set forth for 4 years, which will be conterminous with the commissioner of each district. 3 members shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of official business, and 3 affirmative votes shall be required for approval. The ordinance requires officers to consist of a president, vice president, and secretary to be provided by the recreation director. The current members of the recreation board are Mr. Charles Dixon in the 1st district, Mr. Roy Glanson in the 2nd district, Robert Hunter in the 3rd district, Jimmy Settinger in the 4th district, Corey Kessler in the 5th district, Doug Kirkland, who is of the city of Guyton, Joel Moore of the city of Lincoln, Craig Johnson, the city of Springfield, and Mr. Mike Wilson is the at-large member. There are 3 seats that are requiring to be filled at this time, and that is the 1st district, the 2nd district. I'm sorry, they're all to be filled. We have received responses for the 1st district, the 3rd district, the 2nd district, and the 5th district.
All right. We'll do this by district. 1st district. Commissioner Floyd.
Yes.
Your appointment. He's designated Russell C. Sessions. Any questions? We're going to vote on these individually, and you'll find out why in a minute. I will entertain a motion on Mr. Sessions for the 1st district.
Make a motion to approve Russell Sessions to the 1st district policies of recreation.
Second. Motion and second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? So carried. Commissioner Jones, 2nd district.
Make a motion that we approve Roger Scott, 2nd district representative.
Second.
Any questions? Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. 3rd district.
I make a motion to appoint Mr. Robert Hunter to the Recreation Board for District 3.
Second. Motion and second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. 5th district.
Excuse me, 4th.
That would be, well,
We don't have one.
I'm skipping the 4th because we don't have an appointee designated yet.
I got you.
He'll have it then.
All right. I make a motion to appoint Will Floyd.
All right.
I need to recuse myself.
Commissioner Floyd, that's the reason for voting on these separately, because that's his brother, I understand. All right.
Yeah, Mr. Kiefer, I got a question. On Friday, me and you had a conversation regarding this issue. I had gotten a phone call saying that you was replacing me on the rec board. At that time, you told me that you wasn't aware of it was even on the agenda, that Stephanie had told you, that you thought Stephanie had put that on the agenda. What changed between Friday
I knew it was going to
Monday?
be on the agenda. I had not seen the documents,
Okay.
is I believe what I told you.
No, you said that you wasn't aware it was on the agenda, that Stephanie might have put that on the agenda. Is what none of your conversation was.
That's not true.
I asked-
Stephanie and I have been talking about it for the last 2 or 3 meetings, so I definitely knew.
I mean, I don't have a problem with being replaced. My thing is, we talked about this Friday. If I was going to be replaced, I would like to be notified.
I didn't know at that time. And I think I told you that.
Yeah, and you said you would give me a phone call before the meeting on Tuesday, and I haven't received a phone call. That's just a respect thing. You see what I'm
making
making?
my decision now.
Okay, I mean, when you say something, I would expect you to follow through with it.
I understand.
All right?
I understand. Motion saying.
I have a motion, I have a second.
Second.
Motion and a second to to appoint William Floyd. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. That part can-
Were all these people put on their time is not, my person that I represent the fourth district, he resigned, that's the reason I had to replace him. The rest of them resigned, but, I mean, did they resign?
Mine resigned because Mine resigned because he doesn't live in the second district, and he hasn't lived in the second district for the last 2 years. That's my.
I just wondered, I thought they ran with you
I made a
when you were
decision
elected
to make a change.
commissioner. Okay.
All right, so you-
Huh?
Can we just talk this off, so you just need to be-
All right.
That's fine.
And you'll have your appointing for next meeting?
Yes, sir.
Next item, consideration to approve to reappoint Herb Jones to the CRC Council.
Yes, sir, Mr. Jones is a current member on the CRC Council. His term is set to expire June 30th, 2015. It is my understanding that he does attend meetings faithfully. We did receive, and it is in your agenda material, an email from the city of Guyton, Springfield, and Lincoln, stating that they are fine with his reappointment.
So he says he'll serve again, and the city of Rankin approves it.
The city of Lincoln stated that they don't believe there will be initially, that they will put it on the next agenda. They will see following.
Are we the appointing authority on this? The Board of Commissioners is? With the concurrence? How did,
It's a non-public.
It's a
I'm
non.
just trying to understand.
Herb Jones has been on it a long time. and he-
No, I support that. I'm just trying to understand how.
He does, I'm just telling you,
Yeah.
he's been on it a long time and he does an excellent job. He's very good.
Yeah. No, I disagree.
No,
I'm just trying to understand how it went.
The letter we received from CRC said that that CRC needed a letter from our board head, our letterhead signed by the chairman that referenced concurrence from the city. So I don't know the answer to your question or not, but I don't know we're the appointing authority, but the letter has to come from us.
Motion.
To approve order number one, Mr. Herb Jones.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to approve to change the June 16, 2015 commission meeting to June 23rd, 2015. And that's for the purpose of the budget,
Yes, sir.
or the millage.
Doesn't matter. Does that just move it to the next Tuesday?
The following Tuesday.
And that's not a problem for the planning board. Got enough time to give that. Motion.
Make a motion to approve order number one, move meeting from June 16th to June 23rd.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Last item, how much you got there, Paul? Can we get it done by 7 o'clock?
I can do mine, yes.
Mr. George, you can be getting set up.
Okay. Would you like me to do so?
Go ahead, sir.
You have attached your monthly fire report for the month of April. ACCG summer regional meeting, we discussed this last time. I'm leaving those on. I just left it on the list. It's Thursday, June 25th, 10 to 2. So that technical conference, oh, this is new. Back up, this is new. So ACCG is holding informal informational meetings. They're doing them throughout the state. The one in our area is Thursday, June 25th, 10 to 2 with lunch at 12. It's at the Savannah Technical College, Savannah campus, not the one here. It's designed to introduce county officials and staff to a variety of programs and services offered And the targeted individuals are finance, facility management, fleet, human resource, information technology. And if you read the agenda that's attached in your thing, it'll make sense why we're targeting those people, because it's a wide array of things that pertain to those type of disciplines. There will be a groundbreaking ceremony of the new Interstate 95 Georgia Welcome Center. They are going to raise the old one and build a new one in its place. I think they've already started on some of the construction. Next Tuesday, a week from today, the 26th at 11 o'clock a.m. That was brought up this morning at our Transportation Advisory Board meeting, and Ms. Ann extended an invitation to all of y'all to be there at that event. Coastal Georgia Indicators Coalition. You should have all received an email on this, but in case you didn't pay attention to it, it didn't get on your radar. Next Thursday, May 28th, from 3 to 5 in this building, there will be a community discussion, not led by us. This is an initiative that Chatham County has initiated. It's a 2035 vision support study that they're doing. And basically they want a stakeholder group of sorts from our community, because it envisions involves Chatham and surrounding counties. They're asking for people, administrative leadership, and representatives from various departments such as economic development, education, health, housing, natural resources, recreation, safety, social services, and transportation. And part of our brought it up here, I think you all copy, but I know we got economic development folks in here, we got public safety, so they're just trying to get a good cross section of people to come to this meeting, get input from. And the last thing that I've had is we have been without a floodplain manager for some time now. I will now announce we have two in-house at this point. Mr. Shaw and Mr. Chamberlain are now certified floodplain managers, so we're in good standing with our CRS program. That's all I have.
Who was the second one, Thomas?
Ms. Morgan, Chamberlain, and George.
Y'all notice you do get 3 hours of continuing education.
I see that.
Go to the ACCG meeting. Is that a, we have to respond to what that is coming?
I didn't see anything that said so. You would think if they're serving lunch.
Yeah, I didn't remember seeing anything, but
There is an RSVP on the Coastal Georgia Indicators now. A lot of asking for that.
you all know what's happening.
Double checking the document, there's no requirement for an RSVP.
Oh, you got it?
All I have to.
Any commissioner?
Just a reminder about the meeting at Lincoln tomorrow. What are the hours of that?
11:30 to 1:30. Lost Plantation.
That's just like a community leader thing again, right?
It's a precursor to the meeting that's set up in June. And I would assume it's to begin the planning process for the meeting in June, so that we have some actual actionable information on that meeting, which will be a follow-up to the one we had a month ago.
Anything else? Well,
Good. Good.
all right. Any other staff got something to say?
You should have your financial reports in your folders, I believe.
They're on my desk. I owe them y'all still. They're in my office.
We'll make sure you get them.
I'll give them to you before you leave tonight.
All right. All right. Time 7 o'clock.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, I went to ACCG's website and they do have a registration link, so who plans to attend, I can do it right now.
I told you I was going to get free hours right here. Doesn't cost to go. So.
Put a reminder on our calendar. I got you.
Yes, sir, this is the southern portion of the IDA property, south of I-16. It is the smaller of the two parcels. It currently does not have a designated use. The planning board recommended denial because they felt strongly that the buffers should all stay in place. Several of the stipulations only refer to the north tract anyway, specifically the sewer treatment plant, which was never contemplated for the southern tract. I might want to point out that items 4 and 5 could still affect the southern tract. It talks about access management plan and traffic safety plans. Those are items that the current stipulation requires they come back to the board for approval. Generally, those are items that go to staff for approval. That's completely up to you whether you want to change those or leave them as is. But just wanted to point out that those two would affect both tracks, whereas most of the stipulations, the sewer stipulation specifically affects the north track.
Public hearing. Anyone here wish to speak for this rezone? State your name for the record, John.
Good afternoon. My name is John Henry. I'm with the Effingham County Industrial Development Authority. We are the property owners on this parcel of land. As you know, we have looked at the zoning stipulations on this piece, and we have requested some buffer changes and some other things. And through the discussion with the public and hearing the concerns at the Planning and Zoning Board meeting, I think we're willing to concede any of those changes. We're happy to pursue the zoning stipulations as regarding the buffer. I don't have a copy of those with me. 4 and 5, I believe George is referencing.
They refer to a traffic safety plan, which specifically was in regards to trucks coming and going on the curve of Old River Road. In this case, it's not as much of a danger, but nonetheless, because it's here, would affect, you'd have to submit a traffic safety plan and a traffic study for this track as well, which we would require. It's just whether it goes back to this board or comes to staff is the difference.
Can I ask for simple terms as far as, I think we all understand that probably there's not a desire to change the buffer situation because.
Correct. Yeah.
And assuming that, then what is it that's left that's being asked in the zoning from the IDA? Just get it down to simple, what is it you're asking?
Primarily, number 11, we asked for it to be stricken, and that's a requirement to build a tertiary wastewater treatment facility with a capacity of 100,000 gallons per day over the estimated demand for the areas proposed for industrial development. And that was a requirement on both the north and south tracks. We're discussing south track here, and we asked for that to be removed.
And replaced with what it says here, water sewer service to be provided in accordance with the mutual agreement with details to be established by the water sewer service agreement.
Yes, sir.
And all that came out of our initial meeting where we were attempting to not keep your hands tied with having to build something you don't need to build and spend money you don't need to spend.
That is correct. I think that both parties have reviewed and have looked at that agreement in light of the current day situation. And our purpose here is simply to not have to spend taxpayers' dollars that would be unnecessarily spent.
Right. So is there any other thing that you're asking other than that?
I do believe that we are asking for an additional item 12, where this buffer may be eliminated or reduced if a contractual agreement is reached between the two subject property owners. And that's with regards to the 800-foot setback for the wastewater treatment plant.
All the calls I got were concerned with the buffer staying in place. My understanding is whenever this property was purchased, the citizens and the IDA work out the 400-foot agreement. And I intend to make sure that stays in place. I'm in agreement with the striking number 11 and the wording number 12 as well.
Because the wording of number 12 is saying is protectionary
That's correct. No, the current location, we have done a land swap with R.B. Baker on some land, and I think there's some question as to whether or not the current plans that exist for the wastewater treatment plant are within 800 feet of that new boundary. And I'm happy to pursue that with Mr. Baker to get that changed. I know Mr. Morgan is here, and he's going to speak about the land application system. We, on the northern track, we're also happy to work through that and to make sure that that's no longer located within that buffer zone.
I think with that, we've addressed most of the concerns, but it's public hearing, I'm anxious to hear.
Say 400 feet? Does it say?
Yes, the 800 is for the water treatment facility.
Okay.
400 foot is a non-disturbed.
Undisturbed.
Couple of neighbor properties. For 8
Residential zone.
Residential, right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else here for? Against? One?
Karen,
Come to the mic, please, and state your name for the record.
Henry Morgan, can y'all, I think it's off.
Right. There you go.
Oh, rare, thank you. I just want to get, I'm really trying to get the record straight, because I heard number 11. Do you have that, George? Because I think they've been renumbered already. I just want to make sure I saw that properly.
The south and the north are different numbers.
There are different numbers on the south end.
We're talking about the south.
Yeah, but aren't you using the same numbers for both tracks?
No, because the north track had an additional stipulation regarding the cemetery.
Okay, you got it.
So the south track did not have the wording about just giving land to the cemetery. The north.
Okay, so you took that one out, so you've already windowed it down to what you're calling 11 and 12. That's where I'm confused.
11.
Do you have it right there so I can look at it with you?
I do.
Good. Can we just
Put it up.
I think it's appropriate to look at.
On the screen?
11 is the one talking about the wastewater treatment facility.
I think we're all, I think I understand. I just want to you know. Oh, Lordy. Number 12, wastewater treatment, the buffer made, okay. And that, what I have on the one you sent me as number 14.
We'll address that on the next item.
Okay, okay. I'll sit down for a moment. I wasn't as concerned. My concern was primarily on the north tracks. Excuse me.
All right, anyone else on this track? That's in your district.
I make a motion to approve the stipulation 6 remaining as it was agreed with 400 foot.
Second.
Does that cover?
That's how I think it would change.
Did we not say, striking 11? And then what?
What about 11 and 12?
Well, it's stricken. I can say it. It's stricken though. You're approving
I wasn't looking at it.
I'm approving what we have here, that including stipulation 6, which will include the 400 foot buffer.
All right. Second. Your second. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, by unanimous vote, we go then to the second reading of the same item. Consideration to approve the second reading of an application by the Effingham County Development Authority to rezone 181.99 plus or minus acres located on Old River Road from I-1 to I-1 with a change in stipulation. Map number 331, parcel number 21 in the first district. And there's the second reading.
The planning board recommended changes to stipulation 4, 5, and 13. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
Getting ahead of me,
Yeah.
George. Now we're going to number
It's kind of new, I guess.
Yeah.
And I make a motion to approve what we approved a moment ago.
There you go. I have a motion.
Second.
And a second to approve the second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Next item, public hearing. The planning board recommends approving the application by the Effingham County Development Authority to rezone 1,500 plus or minus acres located on Old River Road from I-1 to I-1 with a change in stipulation. Map number 329, parcel number 41A in the first district.
Yes, sir. The planning board recommended changing stipulations 4, 5, and 13, and denying the changes to items 6 and 14. And item 6 was the 400-foot buffers, item 14 was the 800-foot buffer for the treatment plant. Item 4 and 5 were in regard to the traffic studies and traffic safety. And item 13 was the sewer treatment plant wording changing.
So just hear from the IDA again, if there's any of these that they've already decided that are unnecessary as well.
This should mirror the last, other than the cemetery.
Planning board did not address the cemetery.
All right. This is a public hearing, and I presume you're here to speak for.
Yes, sir. John Henry with the Effingham County Industrial Development Authority again. And we are happy with the planning board recommendations, accepting number 14. I didn't hear mention of number 14, adding the language, this buffer may be eliminated or reduced if a contractual agreement is reached between the two subject property owners.
That was the buffer may be eliminated or reduced if the contractual agreement is reached between.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the planning board motion is changes stipulations 4, 5, 13, and denial of changing 6 and 14. And so you're saying what?
I'm saying I agree with the planning board. We're willing to concede the buffer agreements. But number 14, what was the planning board's recommendation?
They recommend denying that change, which limits the negotiation between parties.
I would ask that we are interested in still making that change. That will allow us to approach Mr. R.B. Baker and make sure that we're not running afoul of any zoning stipulations in there. And if we are, then we can certainly get his approval on that.
Absolutely eliminated item 14.
And denial of change 6, you're okay with the denial of 6?
Denial of 6 is changing the buffer again as it was agreed.
Six maintains 400 feet.
Correct. I will have to stay in the planning board recommendation. That's the one on this one.
So 14 is the only one that's really controversial.
It could be,
Could
but it to mirror the south track. This one being on there.
All right. Anyone here wish to speak against? Mr. Moore?
Just wanted to clarify particularly if there's any.
Get your numbers straight.
I'm trying. I think I got the mic and I'm getting better. Number 14, when we came to the planning and zoning 6 or 8 years ago, was, I'm just going to read it, sorry to bore you all to death. Wastewater treatment plant to be located no less than 800 feet from adjoining private property. And then I believe that I guess somebody wanted to add this buffer may be eliminated or reduce the contractual rate agreed between the two subject property owners.
That's the request, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was clear on that.
What he's saying is if they want to put it, if a neighboring property owner, if they can get with them and the neighboring property owner says, okay, you can be.
It would take that to do it.
I'm staying out of that little part, you know. I just wanted to make sure I heard it right.
All right.
I like the first sentence, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Mr. Sapp, good to see you.
Hubert Sapp, good to see you, Mr. Guster. I have a problem with removing any of the stipulations or being able to have a contractual agreement with a property owner. Because what's going to happen, R.B. Baker is in that deed. He's already dug right at 100 acres. And when you look across the hole of water, and they put something right up against that hole of water, where is that noise going? It's coming right across that water, and it actually amplifies it. It's worse with the water there. And R.B. Baker is digging another 43 or 45 acres adjoining the pit that's already there. So that takes care of the whole front side of the property on Old River Road. And if they can, and R.B. Baker would not care if they didn't have a buffer, because they're not living there, and the noise is not going to bother them. But if you put in the movie production, if that was a go, I wouldn't have a problem with it, because I feel that had to be a quiet operation. But right now, we don't know what's going in there. And I'd rather that stipulation stay in place, that it had to be that amount of buffer. And at such time, if there's a movie studio goes in, it's a quiet operation, I don't think any of the property owners would have a problem with it. And I'd ask that you just keep it in place.
What footage would you be amicable to?
Well, I think it should go with the original agreement at 400 foot.
Well, it's actually 800.
See,
No, that's water treatment.
that's water, and that's what they're asking to change. They're not talking about the 400-foot buffer.
Well, they want to have a contractual agreement with adjoining property to change that buffer too. The 400 foot?
But
Or am I wrong?
only for the 800 foot.
It is still going to be 400 feet.
All right, well, I misunderstood and I'm sorry.
Hey, that's what these hearings are for, so that everything's understood.
But as far as the wastewater treatment plant, tertiary plant, I had rather see them come to the county. But at the time that all that was put in place, it was too expensive. It was about 5 times more expensive to come to the county than it was to build a plant. And that's the reason that was put in.
Understand?
All right, so well, I thank y'all for your time.
Thank you for your time. Got something else?
Richard Sapp. Just wanted to make sure that we understood about the road upgrades, because presently the entrance to this site is in a very dangerous area, and that was the reason those were put there. Is that staying like it is, or is it being taken out?
There's nothing, the only change is that the traffic safety plan and the traffic study would not come back to this board, it would go to staff, which is our standard operating procedure for these items.
So what protection do we have that we'll be safe? We live there, we travel that road. It's in a very dangerous place. We've already beat that horse 6 years ago. I mean, why would we want to give that up now when we knew it was a hazard? That's the reason we had it set up like that. It's a very, very dangerous area.
You see it's properly engineered, but it would have to be properly engineered and approved by the staff, we have to be following the ordinances.
And the staff works for this board, so, you know, you always have
They
the
have
ability.
required, they
to
have
come.
required engineering to follow.
So it will be taken out. That part will be taken out.
Only the part where we go back to the board, the studies will still be done.
Right, that's what I mean, it'll be taken out,
Yes.
the board part.
Anyone else? Commissioner Floyd.
Make a motion that we're going to go with the planning board recommendation to approve with the exception of item 14. That will be, will remain, changes to be 4, 5, 13, and 6.
Or 14.
I think that's 40.
14 is,
Changes.
yeah, that would mirror what, because they denied the last one.
But not to deny 14.
Right, 14 will remain.
The only one you want to stay the same as 6.
Let's see what it says here. Approval of change.
They're approving the change of 4, 5, and 13, but they're denying 6 and 14, but we're only going to deny 6.
Correct.
6 would require it to continue
The way it's
to have a
worded
100-foot buffer.
is
which is
confusing
exactly
about
what
it.
I just said.
So we're approving the changes of 4, 5, 13, and 14, and not 6.
Denying the changes of 6, which the buffer, that will leave the buffer in place. Correct. And that's the key.
I'll second that. I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the stipulations 4, 5, 13, and 14, and to deny the change of stipulation for number 6. Correct? All right. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried unanimously. So we go to the second reading. Consideration to approve the second reading of an application by the Effingham County Development Authority to rezone 1,500 plus or minus acres located on Old River Road from I-1 to I-1 with a change in stipulations. Map number 329, parcel number 41A in the first district.
Okay. I'll make the motion to approve what we just approved.
Second reading. Second reading. Second. I have a motion. Second. And a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So carried. Next item, public hearing. The planning board recommends denying an application by Raymond Perry for a variance to place an accessory structure in the front yard with a setback reduction on the property line located at 138 Melrose Place, map number 465H, parcel number 166A in the second district.
Okay, so Mr. Perry lives in the Westwood Heights neighborhood and lives on a corner lot with a lot of mature pine trees. In an effort to protect his car, he wanted to build a carport, and actually started to build a carport. It's not attached to the house, it's in the front yard. Our accessory structure will require accessory structures to be 10 feet off side property lines, 5 feet off rear property lines, and in the side or rear yard. While he does have some challenges because of the layout of his house and the number of trees, it is possible that he could either remove a tree or remove some roots or build over the roots to put the carport in the side or backyard. And staff and planning board recommend denial.
All right, public hearing. Anyone here wish to speak for this item? Against? show no one to speak for or against. Second district, do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we support staff and planning board recommendation of denial of the variance.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried unanimously. So we move to the second reading. Consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Raymond Perry for a variance to place an accessory structure in the front yard with a setback reduction on property line located at 138 Melrose Place, map number 465H, parcel number 166A in the second district.
Mr. Chairman, I think we just need to remove this item, because it was never a first reading, so we can't consider it a second. I think it just, am I right?
You're right. Get a motion.
Oh, but if the first is a no, then, yeah, there's no need for a second.
There you go.
I make a motion that we remove this second reading that's unnecessary.
Second. Could have done that before I read all of that.
Didn't stop.
Motion and a second, all in favor? None opposed. All right, next item, public hearing. Planning board recommends approving an application by Robert Jackson to rezone 2.65 acres located at 264 Whitaker Road from AR1 to AR2, map number 441, parcel number 17 in the third district.
Yes, sir, as you're aware, creating parcels from the AR1 that are less than 5 acres requires rezoning. This is a request to rezone 2.65 to AR2 to subdivide it for a family member. Staff and planning board recommends approval.
All right, public hearing. Anyone here wish to speak for this rezoning?
Yes, my name is Robert Jackson, and was requesting to have it rezoned from AR1 to AR2.
All right. Anyone else for? Anyone against? Third district.
Make a motion to approve the application by Mr. Robert Jackson to rezone 2.65 acres.
Second. Motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed? So carried unanimously. So we move to the second reading. Consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Robert Jackson to rezone 2.65 acres located at 264 Whitaker Road from AR1 to AR2, map number 441, parcel number 17 in the third district. Motion.
Make a motion to approve the second reading of the application by Mr. Robert Jackson to rezone 2.65 acres.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Rezoning. Next item, public hearing. The planning board recommends approving an application by Laura Moore and Jennifer Hitchens for a variance to have a rural business on an easement located at 2430 Rickon Stillwell Road, map number 461, parcel number 56A in the 5th district.
So our rules for having a rural business require public road frontage. This lot is landlocked, served by an easement. Planning board and staff recommend approval. We do have written permission from the only parcel that this driveway easement crosses, and it is a family member of the applicants as well.
All right. Anyone here wish to speak for the rezoning? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Hitchens, and like I said, it's just family land that we'd like to use to get back to the business.
All right. Anyone else for? Anyone against? All right. 5th District.
Make a motion to approve the planning board and staff recommendations.
Motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried unanimously. So we move to the second reading. Consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Laura Moore and Jennifer Hitchens for a variance to have a rural business on an easement located at 2420 Rankin Stillwell Road, map number 461, parcel number 56A in the 5th District.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item, public hearing. The planning board recommends approving an application by Laura Moore and Jennifer Hitchens for a rural business use for a dog grooming business located at 2420 Rankin Stillwell Road, map number 461, parcel number 56A in 5th District.
Yes, now that the applicants have been granted a variance to have a business on a property owned by or accessed by an easement, staff and planning board recommends approving the application for a rural business for a dog-driven business on this parcel with those stipulations to meet all the requirements of rural business.
All right. I know you're for it, so I'm not going to make you come back. Anyone against? The record shows nobody opposed. 5th District.
Make a motion to approve the rural business permit.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Last item of business, folks. Item number 7:30. All right, we've already finished all reports. Do we need one of those for their executive session?
Make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personal property.
Motion and second. All in favor? None opposed, we stand so adjourned into executive session. You should have opposed that.
You're on.
All right. Back in regular session. Before you, we've got the minutes for the executive session minutes for May 5th. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Any other business to come before this board? I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. Without objection, we stand adjourned. Adjourned.